What's up, you guys? Welcome back to the channel. I am Jesse, and for the last month or so, I have been lucky enough to be using a pre-production version of Virpil's latest throttle offering, the CM3. If you've seen my Monster Tech chair review video, I cleverly hid that throttle in the video, and I am happy to report that none of you picked up on it. I was lucky enough to have the opportunity to provide feedback on the pre-production unit, and it did have a couple things that I thought could be improved, and for that reason, I wanted to wait to do a full review video on the CM3 until I got a real production unit that you guys will be getting in the mail if you order one of these to really do a full rundown on. I got that unit about a week ago and have been using it happily for the last week or so, and am really excited now to report back to you guys on my experience with it. Now, the base of the CM3 is essentially identical to the CM2. They have not fundamentally changed anything on the base, and therefore I'm going to cut straight to the chase, the things that have changed on the throttle. If you want to learn more about the base functions and features, I suggest you head over to the link in the corner and check out that video. It goes through the first throttle that they made all the way up to the CM2, and then you can pick right up onto the new improvements on the CM3 with this video. Boom. This guy is what we're talking about today. The primary upgrade they made to the CM3 throttle was the addition of detents and gates. Now, they could have just added a single detent or two detents or a single gate or two gates, fix them in place, and you just use them as best as you can depending on the application, i.e. space sim, flight sim of a jet, flight sim of a World War II era aircraft. But they went a step further to offer users a bunch of choices, which is awesome. Many of us hoped that you would be able to buy the system and retrofit it to the CM2. Unfortunately, that is not the case, but there are products out there for the CM2 that are 3D printable, or you can purchase them that give you similar functionality. Change the geometry a little bit to account for the system, which includes longer throttle arms, which is always a welcome addition. So the levers are made out of metal. Their spring action is actually very strong. It's in a pretty comfortable place. In the pre-production model, these were a little further apart from each other, and the lock didn't do a super good job of keeping them together. They would separate even if they were in the locked position, and they definitely fixed that problem. These no longer separate from one another, and it feels really, really good. With the CM3, you get 5 different detent gate combinations, and to some extent you can mix and match. In the bag you'll get a little tool, Aerobatic Detents, Classic Detents, Classic Plus Detents, Warthog type Detents, and Cosmosim Detents, which I have installed right now. There is just a detent in the center. On the prototype, I felt like the detents were a little shallow, meaning you could move right through it and you would feel it, but you would have a difficult time stopping on it precisely if that's what you were trying to do, is stop at the 50% mark. So they did deepen those detents, and they feel much stronger and easier to land on if you're really trying to zero out the throttle. It's a detent, so it's push through. You don't have to activate the throttle levers to move past it. You just drive the throttle forward or backwards and it will come out of the detent. The idea behind the Cosmo detent is that in a dogfight or in space sims in general, you're going to be transitioning from forward thrust to reverse thrust enough that you don't want to have to activate levers every single time you want to move past that position. So, you know, your forward thrust, if you're trying to land on a landing pad, reverse thrust, forward thrust. If you're in a dogfight, clearly you're jockeying back and forth between those two power settings quite a bit. It really works super well. I've been using it in Elite Dangerous lately, and it is super, super satisfying and really nice to have that clear, zeroed out position on the throttle for a space sim. Next up, we have the Warthog style detents. This is designed to be familiar to pilots who are moving from a Warthog, and they like having hard gates on every movement of the throttle. So you've got a hard gate to come up off of the stops or the off position to come up into a starting position or an idle position on the throttle. And then you've got a hard gate to get back into the off position on the throttle. Similarly, you've got a hard gate at the afterburner stop, and then to come back out of afterburner, you've got a hard gate to bring back into military power. So the classic detents have a hard gate to get past idle into the off position, and then they have a gate that you have to lift over to get past a high throttle setting into a max throttle setting or an afterburner setting. To come back out of afterburner or max throttle, there is no detent or gate that you have to get past, and to come up out of off into the idle position, you do not have to pass a detent or a gate. This is a pretty good universal starting place for most applications. Classic Plus is, as the name suggests, the same as the Classic, only they've added detents on the back side of the first gate and the front side of the top gate. Classic Plus is my favorite aviation option. The last option you have is called Aerobatic Detents, and this is the least aggressive of all of them. There are no gates, just two detents. It's really more of an agile setup where you're not trying to stop the throttle in any position. You just want to know where those positions are. Maybe for formation flying, or maybe for, specific maneuvers you want to perform, or you just don't like having to manually lift over gates for a specific game. Maybe it's a racing game and you don't want to have to constantly be activating the levers to get over gates, but you do want some kind of idea tactically where you are in your power settings. These also work well if you want a gate on one side of your throttle, but on the back or the front you would like to have just a detent and no gate at all. You can mix these pieces out with the other detents to get exactly what you're looking for on both sides of your power range. Each of the pieces have a symbol system to help you understand which is the front piece and which is the back piece. If it's a back piece, it'll have an arrow facing the front of the throttle and a line on the back of the piece. And if it's the front piece, it'll have an arrow facing the front of the throttle, but no line. A couple of the pieces don't have a back line, which means you can basically interchange them on the front or the back, or with another set if you want to use the back from one and the front from another. Each detent piece does have a little bit of forward and backward play as well, so you can really fine-tune on the front and the back side where that detent hits. Final thoughts time. Before the CM3, really my only ask was that detents be returned to the throttle. I was so pleasantly surprised to find out that not only were they adding detents back to the throttle again, but they were giving you a huge range of options, gates to detents, and the levers that you need to operate to get past the gates were super robust and very satisfying to articulate. I'm just super impressed and couldn't be happier that they went to the next level with the detents and didn't just sort of figure out a way to reproduce what they had in the CM1. It shouldn't surprise me at this point. Virpil is a very forward-leaning company when it comes to improving upon their own designs, and this system is one that you're going to have a hard time finding in most other throttles out there. I also want to mention that I have been using the button box number 1 in conjunction with this throttle through its daisy chain system, and it works terrific. It is so nice to be able to link the two devices together and not have yet another long cable going from my control setup to my computer, needing another USB port, of which I am in desperately short supply these days, and it just works terrifically. Okay guys, that's a short one to give you a rundown of the CM3 and its detent/gate system. If you guys have any questions that I didn't answer in the video, sling them down into the comment section below. I will definitely get to them as fast as I can. Thank you for watching, you guys. I appreciate each and every one of you. Hit that like button if you like the video. Sub if you feel like doing that too. Stay tuned for more videos coming at you quick. I'll see you next time, guys. Peace.